In case you missed it, Los Angeles Comic-Con this past weekend hosted a special guest appearance from comics personality, frequent MCU cameo maker, creator of Stripperella. That's real, look it up. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot, co-creator of much of the Marvel Universe, including Spider-Man, the Hulk, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, not Captain America though. I've seen a lot of news sites saying that he co-created Captain America. That's sloppy journalism. I am, of course, talking about none other than Stan the Man Lee. But Josh from Panels to Pixels, I hear you ask. Thank you for using my full name. How can that be? Don't you know that Stan Lee died in 2018, aged 95? What are you, stupid or something? Well, first of all, rude. But second of all, it's AI. They're doing it with AI and holograms. Yes, as reported by The Hollywood Reporter last week, Stan Lee Universe, a division of Cartoon Studios, has teamed up with Proto Hologram and the AI company Hyperreal to resuscitate, revive, puppeteer the corpse of our fearless leader, Stan Lee. And I think it's fair to say that it's been a little controversial. There have been some takes about this online, and I thought I would weigh in as well. I made a video a few months ago about my opinions about Gen AI. If you're a frequent viewer, or if at least you saw that video, you'll know that I'm, kind of against it. But maybe not. I'm a little bit late to the party here. I've waited until his appearance has actually taken place. We've got some footage. We've got some fans asking him questions, and we're going to see how this technology holds up. Is this a convincing appearance of Stan Lee, an authentic Stan Lee experience, as the companies behind it have been touting? Hey heroes, I'm Josh from Panels to Pixels, and this is AI Stan Lee. God help us. Okay, so there's really two components to this. There is the AI component and there's the hologram component. That's the way that I see it. And I'm for some of it and against some of it. And we're just going to give the rundown. First of all, here's how the whole thing went down. LA Comic-Con, there was a little area set up with, I think, one big proto hologram thing, which looks like a kind of phone booth or like a shower at a YMCA or something. And so there'd be one big one with Stan Lee on stage leading a bit of a Q&A, but then also there were kind of miniature ones, like kind of 12-inch Stan Lees in boxes that you could go and put headphones on and have a conversation with for the princely sum of $15 to $20. That's how much it would cost for you to go and talk to a computer wearing Stan Lee's face. For that $15 to $20, you get 3 minutes with the man himself to talk to him, and you can also pose for photos. I think they were, again, touting it as kind of an authentic Stan Lee convention guest appearance. So I've got some quotes here from Chris DeMoulin. I don't know. The chief executive of Kamikaze Entertainment, which operates Los Angeles Comic-Con. And he basically talks about, again, how this is an authentic experience, and it was trained, the AI model was trained on Stan Lee's red carpet appearances, and quote, "This avatar will never say something that Stan didn't say. It will never have a point of view about Marvel or the stories or Stan's role in them that hasn't come directly from something Stan has said." So anyone hoping to, get it to say something racist like Grok, unless Stan said it. But as we review the footage in a little bit, I will say, I haven't seen anyone ask it any kind of like hardball questions. We'll come to it. Now, I was going to write a joke here about how maybe the data set for the Stan Lee AI was actually Jack Kirby's work, and he's taking credit for it. But, I'll let you finish that joke in your own imaginations. So as I said, there are two components to this. There is the AI kind of brain of Stan Lee, and that's accompanied by a kind of a very static animation. But then there is the hologram component, which I'm actually much more fascinated by these hologram stuff from this company, Proto Hologram. I've seen other stuff where they've had people like Bon Jovi being beamed into like a subway station and busking in a subway station, and that's kind of a novel idea. I like there are creative performance avenues with that, as far as I can see. Although, to be honest, do I want to see holograms of John Bon Jovi taking work from real buskers in subway stations? Probably not. But in terms of the AI, I actually think that Stan Lee is kind of a perfect candidate for this. Aside from being the king of cameos, he was the king of sound bites. He already kind of had programmed responses to a lot of these questions about the origins of Spider-Man. How did you come up with Spider-Man? Well, I was. I'm not going to do an impression. Excelsior. Well, I was sitting in my office and I saw a fly crawling up the wall, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be good if a hero had the powers of a fly and crawl up the wall? And it's like, yeah, look up Stan Lee interview on YouTube, and you'll see him tell the same stories over and over again. And I think that kind of works for this technology, really, because you're going to get kind of variations on those same stories. In a way, as a massive Marvel history buff, I've kind of trained myself on a large data set of Stan Lee interviews. So I reckon if someone came to me dressed as Stan Lee and asked me questions, I could do a pretty good approximation of one of those stories. But would that be an authentic Stan Lee experience? Would it be ghoulish? Yeah, probably. Especially if I was dressed as him, Stan Lee's an interesting person because he, towards the end of his life especially, kind of became as much of a character as a real person. And it's kind of, a bit icky now that companies own his likeness and can, like, on some of the footage we're going to look at, it's going to say Stan Lee trademark is owned by the Stan Lee Universe company and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, but he was a person, he was a guy. But I understand how these things go. But it's also not surprising that Stan Lee would end up kind of being at the center of this kind of venture, because again, towards the end of his life, there was a lot of controversy around elder abuse, and there was a lot of infighting between different parties in his camp, from minders to family members. And it just seemed like there was a lot of people taking advantage of him, sending him out on the convention scene. I think we've all seen the footage of him doing signings and stuff, and he doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look like he's really, what am I trying to say? Very lucid. And yeah, people were making a lot of money off him at these appearances. And when he sadly passed in 2018, the vultures descended, and it all got played out very publicly. People trying to get a slice of the pie, trying to get, fighting for his estate, for his likeness, and stuff like that. And here we are, just 8 years later, and whoever wound up getting his likeness rights is trying to make some money off it. All right, so I think I've made my views on the matter quite clear here. So let's have a look at the footage and see if it sways me.
I'm here today as Hollow Stan to join you at the 2025 Los Angeles.
So from a distance, it looks quite convincing. They've got the green sweater and the khaki pants. I think as we get a little bit further on, you get a close-up view, it's not going to be as convincing. Okay, let's move on to the Q&A segment.
So tied to the civil rights movement.
The X-Men's struggles for equality and acceptance were indeed inspired by the civil rights movement. Larry, I think it's safe to say that Stan Lee and the creative team drew parallels between the X-Men's.
Okay, so first of all, it speaks like ChatGPT. It says things like "indeed," and kind of uses awkward turns of phrases, and it is true that blah blah blah. And also, it just started talking about Stan Lee in third person. So, an authentic Stan Lee experience, or just a conversation with ChatGPT while you're watching a badly animated Stan Lee.
Fight for coexistence with humans and the real-world struggles of marginalized communities during that era. This was a powerful way to address social issues through storytelling. The X-Men's legacy continues to inspire and resonate with fans today. Great question, Larry.
Great question, Larry. Something that I've seen people take issue with on that particular question is also kind of some revisionist history from Stan there, of saying, yes, the X-Men absolutely were an allegory for the civil rights movement. And I think that anyone who knows the comic book history will know that that wasn't necessarily true in the beginning. But then even Stan himself would kind of do a little bit of backtracking on that. Once he saw how that could be used by other writers, he was like, oh yeah, well, I was definitely inspired by that. It's the most surface level thing. And a question like that is kind of, there is the inference of a challenging question there by kind of getting into, politics, if you want to call it that. But it's just giving the most surface level answer there. But again, maybe that's the answer that Stan would give. No, I'm being unfair there because when you read some of Stan's soapbox columns in Marvel Comics, he wasn't afraid to be a bleeding heart, loony lefty liberal at all. He'd go there from time to time. Yeah, I mean, it's the most superficial, just nothing of an answer, and that's what ChatGPT and all these other large language models do so well. Is just say nothing. They just, if you're easily fooled by a lot of words, that's the magic trick of it. It's like, oh, well, it's saying words and they all make sense. The syntax is there, but there's no real meaning behind anything that he's saying.
Another fan named Melissa. She wants to know if you could pick one superhero who would save the world today, who would that be?
That's a great question, Melissa. If I had to pick one superhero to save the world today, I'd have to choose...
Melissa's loving it.
He's got the agility, quick thinking, and web-slinging abilities to swing into action and tackle any challenge. Plus, he's a hero for the people, always putting their safety first. He's got a lot of heart, just like the fans who love him. Great question, Melissa.
All right, I don't want to pick on Melissa too much here. She's having a good time and good for her. And, if I step back from this, I can see the appeal if you're a big Stan Lee fan, which I am, by the way. But it would be exciting to hear Stan Lee address you directly and say your name and give you affirmations like, good question, Melissa. And also to, validate your fave character. If you're a Spider-Man fan and he says Spider-Man's his favorite character, that would be exciting. But when you zoom out from that and think about what's really happening, it's a computer. A computer is saying your name. It's text to speech. You might as well have typed that in yourself and had it say, oh, good question, Melissa. Yeah. So, Melissa's having a good time. Hey, fill your boots.
What are your thoughts on the MCU and Marvel's legacy today?
I'm thrilled to share my thoughts on the MCU and Marvel's legacy. Dawson.
I'm thrilled to blah, 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 blah. And again, a softball question. What do you think about the legacy of the characters he's created in the MCU? What do you think he thinks about it? It would be interesting to see this technology push a little bit. Now, okay, this video is directly from Proto Hologram's social media page. They're obviously not going to show the technology being abused in the way that I want to see it abused. But even so, I mean, considering this is an official piece of promotion, it's not very impressive. I don't think this shows the product in a very, impressive light, even if it doesn't show it in a negative light per se. But again, it would be nice to see a bit of a hardball question there. I would go up and I'd be like, Stan, how exactly would you divvy up the credit for the creation of Spider-Man between you, Steve Ditko, and other people who contributed like Jack Kirby? And earlier I was talking about how Stan was the king of sound bites and he had all these pre-programmed responses. And actually, one of the best interviews with Stan I've ever seen, where he does break out of that a little bit, is the documentary that Jonathan Ross and Alan Moore made. I think it's called In Search of Steve Ditko, where he's pressed a little bit more in a way that a lot of people didn't want to press Stan Lee. For various reasons. I think because he kind of had this like cuddly old grandpa persona, and also because, he repeated the lies so often. I'm getting into sticky territory here. I'm not saying he was a liar, but he created the myth of Stan Lee over so many years that it was kind of unchallengeable. And I think the people who this would appeal to have bought into that myth and just want to have it reaffirmed to them with no anything added.
Spider-Man is definitely one of my favorites. That web-slinging, wisecracking hero has captured the hearts of fans everywhere.
Melissa's done listening to Stan. She's like, yeah, Grandpa, let me take a selfie with you now. I mean, this is fucking dire stuff, isn't it? It is dystopian. Just, propped up against a fake hedgerow in a convention centre. All right, look, so my qualms with Gen AI aside, I am against it, as I made a whole video about how I'm against it, and I don't use it in any aspect of my life. And I didn't say this in the video, but something I've kind of said to people privately in my life is that I'm taking a stance of like vegetarianism or veganism, where it's like, I'm abstaining from it. If people in my life, my loved ones, want to use it, then, you know, whatever. I don't think they should, but I'm not going to get all preachy about it, you know, unlike the stereotype of vegetarians. You know, it's whatever. If people want to use it, fine. I don't care. I care a little bit, but I'm not going to use it, and I feel good about that. I can sleep at night knowing that I am not outsourcing my brain to a fucking data hoarding computer that is built on the stolen literary artwork, personal data, you know, photo data, you know, virtually everything you can think of that could be stolen to make absolute slop, garbage, shit, meaningless, nothing. All of that aside, I don't object to this on those grounds that might surprise you, because I actually think that, like, I think Stan Lee would love this. I think Stan's life work was Stan Lee. I think, as I said, he spent his entire life making the myth of Stan Lee, making the character of Stan Lee, and I think that this is it kind of come full circle. Stan Lee is now a licensable character who can be used in, you know, what does this amount to? Fiction. So it's whatever. I'm not up in arms about it. A lot of people are like, oh, this is ghoulish and blah, blah, blah. I think this is much more preferable to trotting a 90-year-old man out on a convention circuit when he is clearly not well enough to do that. Is it exploitative? Yes. But I tell you what, I think it's exploitative more to the fans. And my final word on it would be that if you're going to a convention that AI Stan Lee is appearing at in the future, and you think about, you consider spending $15 to $20, or, you know, maybe this was an introductory offer, maybe it'll go up. I think you're a rube. I think you're a fool if you would spend that on what amounts to a magic trick on a computer. And I think that money would be much better spent going to Artist Alley and giving it to a living artist rather than continuing to line the pockets of the ghoulish Stan Lee estate and whoever now owns his likeness. So, yeah. All right, thanks for watching. I appreciate the irony of the fact that I open every video with "Hey Heroes," something that I stole from Stan Lee. I love Stan is the thing. I think anyone who's like watched a lot of my videos would know that I'm massively inspired by his writing. I think he's, his greatest strength in terms of comics, not just as an ambassador. You know, his actual, work in the books themselves was writing dialogue, that kind of like lovely turns of phrases, bringing in Latin phrases, bringing in a lot like colorful language, words like loquacious. I learned that from from Stan Lee. And also the alliteration. I use alliteration all the time in my scripted videos. So it's clear that I have a lot of affection for the man. Do I feel like a lot of people that this is going to tarnish his legacy? Well, to be honest, I don't think that he had a spotless legacy anyway. I don't think he left that behind. I think there are a lot of... I think he's problematic, as Americans say. I think he was a problematic person. And I think that his career is littered with instances of half-truths and being problematic. So it's whatever. I do love you though, Stan. I hope if there's a afterlife, I hope you're I don't know, I hope you're writing comics. That's what you were good at. Anyway, don't give a fucking AI company $20 to take a photo with a bad Stan Lee. Oh, the only thing I didn't talk about was when you see a close-up of this model, this animation, the mouth flaps are just so bad. It's just, it's not very convincing. Anyway, thank you for watching. This was a rambly video. I said I was going to do more raw videos in that AI video, and this is about as raw as it gets. So if you like this kind of thing, let me know in the comments below. And I'll leave you with my most recent video, which was all about the 90s superhero cartoon boom, Street Sharks, Batman the Animated Series, Spider-Man, all that good stuff. So grab yourself a bowl of cereal and put on your Turbo Man pajamas and enjoy that. And I'll see you over there.